Hi my loves, great to have you back, and if this is your first time, it is lovely having you here. I hope you can find something useful or inspiring in this little corner of the internet. And if you do, I would love for you to stick around. And if you're really feeling it and want bonus videos or just want to support the channel a little bit extra, you can check out the link to my Patreon, which is always down below. A little while ago, I received a couple of comments about breaking down what goes into planning and creating a finished piece. And if you ever have any suggestions or questions for videos, always do just drop me a comment. I save all of your questions to cover when I get the chance. But it got me thinking about my process and how it's changed over time and what works for me for getting a painting idea from my head onto paper. And also what goes into a piece looking finished, because that is something that I have struggled with for a long time, still sometimes do. So let's get into it. So you have your idea or the start of an idea, and I really recommend having somewhere easy to note down any and all ideas that come to you. I use Google Keep on my phone, but I think an even better option would be something physical, like a dedicated little notebook that you can always have on you, where you can include little doodles so that you don't have to figure out how to explain the idea in words. But you have your idea, you probably have a visual in your mind of how you want the painting to look. Maybe not all the details, but a general finished piece. The first thing to do is, again, in like a low pressure, messy, scrappy place, like loose bits of paper or a cheap notebook, just start jotting down the idea visually. Think of it as like a visual brain dump, so sketch the layout, note down any colours that you want to use. Keep your workflow loose, don't be afraid of making a mess and having overlapping ideas, just get it all down on paper. I usually use like a gel pen or like ink pen and dot grid or lined paper for this. Not for neatness, but just because note paper feels a lot more relaxed for me. It might be the complete opposite for you and your ideas might flow better on plain paper. And here are just some examples of sketches that I've done while planning a painting, just so you can see how bare bones and loose I am talking. It literally doesn't need to make sense to anyone but you. Now, before you think about refining the idea into the next stage, try twisting it. Have some fun. So maybe you had a particular layout in mind. What if you flipped it or moved elements around? Or you were planning on working on a rectangular canvas. What if it was a square? What if it was round even? I would say commit even maybe up to half an hour to pushing that idea as many ways as you can think of. Through this, you might find an element from one iteration that you want to include in your original design. You might see that it'll work better another way once you've stepped outside of the box, or you might just confirm that you're entirely happy with what you had planned initially, which it's just going to instill more confidence in you, to be honest, as you go forward, especially if it doesn't work out the first try. You know that you're happy with the idea and you just need to work on the execution. And if, like me, you are always collecting ideas and trying to refine them into something cohesive, you will love today's sponsor, Kittle. It is a design platform that makes it so easy to mood board, play around with layouts, and refine your concepts into a polished professional design. Whether you're thinking about art prints or posters, stationery, t-shirts, Kittle will give you the space to experiment and see how your ideas could live beyond the sketchbook or canvas. Plus, you've got access to a huge library of fonts, design elements, and high-res stock images, all within the same platform, so your mood boarding isn't scattered across lots of different subscriptions. So on top of the ability to create mood boards, it's easy to collaborate with a team or client or other artists. One of my favorite features of Kittle is what comes next for your ideas. So there are thousands of designer-made templates that you can start from and tweak to fit your own work. And once we get to the final stage of this video and you've made a piece of work that feels finished, Kittle makes it simple to take a painting or an illustration and test out different directions, like how would this look as a notebook cover versus a poster? Could it work as packaging? Could I make a repeated pattern out of this? If you want to sell your art as a print, you can create mock-ups right there in the platform. I often find it kind of hard to picture my art off the page, but Kittle helped me visualize and refine those possibilities. And the best part is that once you have settled on a direction, you know that everything you export is high quality, print ready, and commercially licensed. So you can confidently turn those refined ideas into actual products and or share them online. If you want to bring your art ideas together in one place, mood boards, mock-ups, branding, product designs, without juggling 10 different tools, I really recommend trying Kittle. You can click the link below to get 25% off all Kittle plans for new users. All right, so you have nailed down the layout and the design. Again, before you start refining it, I would now go and look at references. Obviously, this is completely dependent on what you're drawing, but say I wanted to do a hand holding an ornate candlestick. I would be looking at photos of hands holding things, lots of different candlesticks, candelabras, Also in this case, this is one where I could create my own references. So the exact angle I want, I could take photos of my own hand holding something similar to a candlestick if I don't have one available. I use sites like Shutterstock, Pexels, Pixabay for my references. Shutterstock specifically is really easy to refine your search, and there are tons of photos on there. You're like almost guaranteed to find what you're looking for. I would also at this point stay away from looking at other art, just because while you're still in that ideation phase, it's easy for your idea to get skewed by how other people have done things. Now, how you use your references is again up to you. If you have taken your own photos and you're happy with them, then you move on to the next step. Otherwise, if you're good with Photoshop or Canva, you can splice together a version of the photos that reflects your initial sketch. I usually pull together a bunch of different photos and work from multiple references at once as I go. So rather than like melding them together, just refer to one photo here and one photo there. And if you're already using Kittle, I found it's a great place to put together a sort of mood board or photo dump so that everything is all in one place. Then it is time to finally start refining those initial doodles. And you might even want to do like one last doodle with whatever you have gleaned from your references, like how a hand holding a thing actually looks. I know I'm guilty of guessing what it would look like and looking at a reference and seeing that I was way off. So you might want to redo that first initial doodle sketch of the whole layout, just so you have a good idea of how everything will be placed on the page. And then you can either do your next sketch directly on the surface that you will be making the finished piece on, or you can do it separately and then transfer it to your final canvas when you're happy with it using a lightbox, the grid method, or transfer paper. This sketch should still be loose. Keep an eye on your doodle throughout as you're doing this sketch, just to get an idea of scale and how the piece fits on the canvas as a whole. Don't be afraid to go over the same area multiple times to get lines that feel fluid. I usually do my rough sketch with like an erasable coloured pencil like this one really lightly, then I will go over that with a darker line with the same colour pencil. And if it needs another pass, then I will go over it again with a regular HB pencil for that final line. So if you've done the sketch separately, it is time to transfer it to the final canvas. And if it's already on that canvas or paper or whatever you are painting your final piece on, then it's time to clean that sketch up as much as possible. I sometimes do the main outlines in paint at this point, just something that will dry quickly and won't move when I paint on top of it, like acrylics or acrylic gouache. That's something that helps with cleanup, and also just to make sure that your lines don't get lost as you go. They'll stand out a little bit more as you're painting over it. Now, before you start, here is what I always like to do. I take a look at my sketch, I take a look at my references, and then I envision the process ahead of me, which might sound a little bit woo-woo, but it just helps me so much. So I'll think like, what color am I going to mix first, and where am I going to put it? And then what will I do next? What order am I going to take? Do I want to do dark to light? Do I want to work from background to the foreground? Do I want to work from left to right? For the aforementioned hypothetical hand holding a candlestick painting, do I want to paint the candlestick? Do I want to paint one finger at a time? Do I want to start with like a base skin tone layer that I then add light and shadow to? My go-to method is painting from dark to light. So I'll paint the darkest areas first, working one color at a time, and just keep going like that, almost like a paint by numbers, and then it can all sort of come together. You get more of an ugly stage with this kind of method, but it comes together eventually, and it helps me sort of stay on track with what's going where and not muddying things up too much and getting too involved in details too early on. Having an idea of what order you'll do things in, it helps you not only get stuck as you go, but more than anything, I find it just helps to take the pressure off starting to begin with. I can always and do always stray from the plan just as the actual process takes me wherever it ends up going, but knowing where I'm starting helps me take that first step, which is often the hardest part. Bonus tip for getting started, you might also want to take the time to start with a wash of colour, which will help tie things in cohesively colour-wise, and also just like take away the stark like blankness of the page. I love to use little hacks to get the momentum going through a completely like pressure-free first step like that, or like laying out the paints that I'm going to use, filling up my paintbrush water, choosing the playlist I'm going to listen to, like anything that will get me started in a way that is like very low effort. And speaking of getting started, off you go, you are ready. Follow your process and let the painting guide you. You'll hopefully get into some sort of flow with it. You might want to make sure that you're taking time to regularly check your references instead of assuming, or you might like to just go with it and see where you end up. When you do feel finished, take a step back, like physically create distance between yourself and your art. You might also want to do that periodically during the painting process and just look at it. Like you might see something that needs tweaking or something that you'll do differently next time. Like I said, I have struggled and continue to sometimes struggle with a piece looking finished, and it helps to take a step back when you've just finished the piece to take a look at it, so that you're not thinking you're finished, going away from it and realizing later on that it doesn't look quite done. And then I also have some quick tips for things that I do to get that finished look, like almost like hacks to bring it all together. So neatening up any edges, like you could use background colors or surrounding colors or even outlines to neatly define subjects that you want to be the focus. Light and shadow can also help a lot with that. So adding highlights, making sure that the deepest shadows are consistent in tone and really emphasize the form of whatever you're painting, and adding finer details, not all over, but in spots that you want to bring attention to. Those are all ways to pull a painting together in the end. Finally, I think the most important step in this process that gets overlooked is once you're done, see what you can learn from the process. Did you struggle with mixing colors? Or was your paint drying too quickly on your palette? Was your initial sketch not detailed enough or too detailed? Did you feel confident in your references? Did you have too many references? Were you trying too hard to stick to the plan, and did you miss out on letting go and exploring as you went? Or did you get too sucked into the flow and lose the initial plan? And is that even a problem? While you think about those things, step away from your work, go and do something else, leave it for a while, a day or more, and then think about those things again and think about what you'll do differently next time. Remember, as I always say, we are on a journey, and each piece of art is another step in learning what works for us. So these steps that I've just gone over might feel like a lot, but over time they do become a natural part of the process. I am notoriously not much of a planner when it comes to my paintings. I think they call it a pantser in the writing space because you're like flying by the seat of your pants. Sometimes I do only one or two of these steps, like I'll have an idea in my head, I'll look at a bunch of references and just make it up on the page from there. But having an idea in mind of all that is going to go into each painting and how much planning different paintings might take can be so comforting and empowering for feeling capable of taking those first steps and being happy with the outcome. As long as you're taking each piece as a learning opportunity, I would say that you are on the right track. And that is where I will leave you for today. Let me know what your planning process looks like. I know people in the comments would love to hear different perspectives. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon in the next one.